You ever notice how some crimes are in the news for like a day and then they're gone? But others, they just explode. They become these national obsessions, right? Everyone's talking about them at home, they're all over the news 24/7, and we remember them for years, even decades. So let's get into it, because these stories, they're about way more than just the crime itself. I mean, just look at this quote. It is absolutely chilling. Pramod raised me like a pet dog. Wow. And this wasn't some random street crime. No, this was said by Praveen Mahajan right after he walked into a police station to confess that he had just shot his own brother. And his brother wasn't just anybody. He was a really powerful politician. In just one sentence, you see the lid get ripped off this whole private family drama, exposing these incredibly raw, twisted emotions that can actually drive someone to murder. So that really brings us to the big question here, right? What exactly makes a murder sensational? Is there some kind of formula, you know? What are the ingredients that take a horrible private tragedy and turn it into this massive public spectacle? Yeah, what is it that captivates a whole nation of 1.4 billion people? Well, it's definitely not just about the crime itself. It's about who's involved, right? The power they have, the intense passions that are driving them, and sometimes it's about the completely baffling mystery they leave in their wake. So we're going to break this all down by looking at three big themes that you see again and again in India's most infamous cases. All right, first up, power, privilege, and impunity. This one's huge. We're talking about those cases that really make you question everything, you know? They shake the very foundations of the justice system because you've got powerful people who seem to think they're completely above the law. I mean, think about it. What happens when the person accused of a crime is the son of a minister or maybe a high-ranking police officer? This is the kind of stuff that just ignites public fury. It becomes this classic story of influence versus justice. And honestly, it's a narrative we've seen play out over and over again, usually with tragic results. And there are two cases that really stand out. Okay, look at these two cases side by side. The parallels are just chilling. On one side, you have the Jessica Lal case, a model shot and killed for refusing to serve someone a drink in a crowded bar. The accused? The son of a union minister. And guess what? He was initially acquitted. Then you have the Priyadarshini Mattu case, a law student stalked for years and then murdered. The accused? The son of an influential police officer. You see the pattern here, right? In both of these cases, the abuse of power and privilege was so blatant, it actually took massive public outrage, candlelight vigils, and huge media campaigns to force the system to go back and deliver justice. These cases weren't just about the victims anymore, they became symbols of the public fighting back against the powerful. All right, so let's move on to our next theme, which is intense. We're going from the corridors of power right into the privacy of the home. This is where love turns to rage, where emotions like love, jealousy, and betrayal just explode into the most unimaginable violence. I mean, how does that even happen? How can something like intimacy, these close relationships, lead to some of the most gruesome acts you can possibly imagine? It's a really unsettling question, isn't it? I think these crimes get under our skin because they happen behind closed doors. They come from emotions that we can all kind of understand, love, jealousy, but they get twisted into something absolutely monstrous. And you'll see that the level of brutality, it often matches how deep the sense of betrayal was. And there is probably no better or more horrifying example of this than the infamous Tandoor murder. Now, the people at the center of this were Sushil Sharma and Naina Sanhi. He was a youth Congress president. She was his wife, also in politics. From the outside, they seemed like a regular, ambitious couple. But behind the scenes, something was seriously wrong. And just look at how terrifyingly this all escalated. It all starts with suspicion. Sushil Sharma finds his wife, Naina, on the phone. Then comes the rage. He hits redial, confirms she was talking to another man, and he shoots her. Just like that. But what he did next is what burned this case into the nation's memory, the concealment. He takes her body to a restaurant, and then the destruction. He chops up her body and tries to burn the pieces in a tandoor, a clay oven. The sheer, grotesque brutality of that cover-up, it was just beyond belief. It's why this became such a landmark case. And you see that same shocking, brutal pattern in the Neeraj Grover murder. I mean, this one sounds like it was ripped straight from a movie script. You've got a TV executive, a struggling actress, and her jealous fiancé, who is a naval officer. He suspects they're having an affair, confronts Grover, and kills him in a fit of rage. And then, sound familiar? Just like the Tondor murder, he and his fiancée chop up the body to get rid of the evidence. So this is the key takeaway here, right? In these so-called crimes of passion, the violence doesn't end with the murder. The attempt to cover it up is often just as horrific, if not more so. Okay, for our final theme, we're going into maybe the darkest territory of all, the unexplained and the unthinkable. These are the cases that defy any simple explanation, the ones that really tap into our deepest, darkest fears, because there's no clear motive or the acts themselves are just beyond comprehension. Let me ask you this. What's more terrifying? A crime where you understand the motive, even if it's awful, or one that's a complete, baffling mystery? I mean, think about it. A crime of passion, it's horrific, but we can kind of process it in our heads, right? Jealousy, rage, we get it. But a crime with no clear why, that's the stuff that keeps you up at night. It suggests this terrifying randomness, an evil that's so much harder to wrap your head around. And nothing, absolutely nothing captures this kind of mystery better than the Arushi Hemraj double murder. Just follow this timeline of confusion. May 16, 2008, 14-year-old Arushi Talvar is found murdered in her bedroom. The prime suspect? The family's servant, Hemraj, who is nowhere to be found. Okay, seems like a pretty open and shut case, right? Wrong. The very next day, Hemraj's body is discovered on the terrace of the same house. All of a sudden, your number one suspect is now victim number two. The entire investigation was just flipped on its head. And from that exact moment, the case spiraled into this massive vortex of confusion, wild media theories, and a mystery that, honestly, India is still obsessed with today. And look, if the Arushi case was baffling, the Nathari massacre was just plain unthinkable. The horror next door. When the skeletal remains of children started being found in a drain behind a house in a regular Noida neighborhood, the whole country was just horrified. But the real shock, the detail that no one could process, came from the confession of the servant, Surendra Kohli. He admitted to raping and killing his victims, and then to cannibalism. I mean, that detail, it just crossed a line from being a crime into something else entirely. Pure primal horror, literally the stuff of nightmares. So, after looking at all of this, the cases about power, the ones about passion, the ones that are complete mysteries, what does it all add up to? Why are we so drawn to these stories? Well, it's because ultimately, these cases act as a mirror to our society. The reason we watch, the reason we can't look away, is because these cases reflect society's deepest flaws and fears right back at us. They show us the massive influence of class and power. Remember Jessica Lull? They highlight the media's incredible role in shaping how we see a story, just like in the Arushi case. And maybe most importantly, they show this huge public hunger for justice when it feels like the system is broken. So these stories, they're not just some kind of grim entertainment, they're actually a national conversation about who we are as a society and what we really stand for. And that really leaves us with one last question to chew on. We've just walked through cases that defined past decades. But think about it. These same themes of power, passion, and mystery, they are playing out right now in today's headlines. So the real question is for you. When you look at the sensational stories that are captivating everyone right now, what does that mirror reflect about us today? It's definitely something to think about.